Hello and welcome to the Global Dialogue. I'm Shireen Bhan and we're in conversation with the outgoing president of the World Bank, David Malpass. Mr. Malpass, many thanks for joining us here on CNBC-TV18. It's good to have you here in India.
Hello, Shireen. Good to be here.
Well, let me start by talking to you about your decision to leave the bank ahead of your scheduled tenure. And I understand that you believe that the bank is in a good position, it's strong at this point in time, and hence you can make this exit. But I wanted to understand from you the timing of it, considering the fact that the world is still going through a very uncertain phase, especially economically. And more importantly, you're looking at a whole bunch of crucial issues, including the issue of debt resolution. You're the G20 chair of that committee. So why the decision to move now?
Shireen, it's been a very busy 4 years, so that's a long time in a job. We've accomplished a lot. We've made progress, and I'm very happy with the setup of this roundtable on debt. There's lots more to be done in that area, in the climate area, in the development challenges. One of the things I do worry about is the developing countries. Many of them are really facing huge challenges from the standpoint of fertilizer, of food, and of the high prices that are going on for energy. But these are issues that the World Bank is deeply engaged in. So my timing is really, we're finishing up a great fiscal year for the World Bank. We've been achieving record levels of lending and of grants to countries. So I'm pleased with the progress. So it's a good time for me personally. I want to look for new challenges, and a good time for the bank.
What new challenges are you exploring?
Well, I really want to have impact on all the issues that I mentioned there, and also be engaged really in some of the global issues. I've expressed the concern about the absorption of capital in the advanced economies. So we know that global growth is really facing some big challenges. So I expect to be engaged with companies and with structures that are really interacting with the global system. So I'm looking forward to that.
Let's talk about the global challenges, and I want to address the issue of growth, but also address the issue of the challenge that central bankers are facing at this point in time. And it's very clear from the data that's coming out from the US that the central banks are going to have to work harder. Now, what do you see as the big side effects of moving from a low for long to a high for longer world?
Yeah, that's a great and a core question. The world has to find a way to get to the answer on inflation quicker than what is happening right now. It looks like a long, drawn-out process. We have to start from the premise that the 0% interest rate was an abnormal situation. That couldn't continue. So the world's moving to a more normal interest rate. But I've been pretty outspoken that the central banks need to look at more tools than just interest rate hikes. The interest rate hikes they affect the demand side of the budget, but of the economy, but they also slow down the supply side, the businesses that can't get capital. I think there's more that could be achieved by central banks in terms of their regulatory policies to make them more business friendly and better risk assessment mechanisms. And I also have the view that the central banks are owning too many bonds. This absorbs capital from all over the world, and I think it is a burden really on growth. So I would like to see a model where the central banks use all of their tools in order to have price stability achieved. One part of this, and I'll just make one more point, currency stability has been an important underpinning of global growth. And so I think there can be more focus on that. I'm here in India, and I've been pleased to see that the rupee has stabilized in recent months. And I think that's an opportunity as well for India to show that it's got a stable financial system that can really support a stable currency and therefore lower inflation.
You know, you talked about India, so that gives me the perfect segue to focus a little bit more about your thoughts as far as the Indian economy is concerned. You know, strong at this point in time, relatively resilient in comparison to the rest of the world. How do you view India today from your perch?
It's a very interesting case because many of the developing countries are having more problems than India in growth. And so it's been refreshing and encouraging to see India come off of COVID. It was a very hard time for the people of India, come off of COVID in a way that's allowing them to really recover. So what can be done now is to foster that. I saw the new budget, which is making more investments and reducing subsidies, and so that's a good starting point. It was named Amrit Kal, which is a vision for the future that includes 8% growth. I think that's achievable by India, and India is showing the leadership both in the G20 and in the world community to make good progress. I do think it's really important that the private sector be enabled. That means more space in terms of small businesses and medium-sized businesses. Women in the labor force is a critical part of the growth. More credit. Land reform and agriculture reform these are all challenges that India can face in becoming more competitive in a challenging global environment.
You know, you talked about private investment and catalyzing private investment, and I want to talk about that in the context of India. What we are seeing, and that is what the budget articulated, are incipient signs of private capital formation. But what do you believe is necessary? What are the imperatives that will unleash this going forward?
India has this challenge of state-owned enterprises probably play too big a role. Big companies have been adding employees, which is good, but the real engine for job growth is small businesses that become medium-sized businesses. And India has this process where they tend to list, they become publicly listed companies, and then they can't undo that. They can't form the consolidation waves. Around the world, we see consolidation, so companies that can be expanded into bigger entities are part of the efficiency gain and the job gain. India could make regulatory changes that enabled that. Agriculture, I'll come back to, and land reform are critical parts of the reform process for India, and of course financing. India has gone through waves of challenge and solutions. I was here in 2019 and spoke on the topic of the non-bank financial companies that are part of the growth, but I think at the core there needs to be more efficient banking sector, and as I mentioned, the regulatory sector around avenues for delisting companies so that they can be attractive for huge amounts of new investment.
You are going to be meeting with the Prime Minister as well as the Finance Minister, and you are going to be part of the deliberations at the G20 meeting in Bengaluru as well. Any specific areas that you intend to take up with both the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister?
We've had a great dialogue between the World Bank and the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister, and I look forward to that. We talk about specifics. India is leading the G20, and one of the topics there will be India's own competitiveness and role in the world, which is expanding and is welcomed by the world. But I also mentioned this debt roundtable that will be part of the discussion, so I'll be discussing those topics with those two senior officials. Prime Minister Modi has been very interested in helping India achieve this faster growth rate. So I know we'll speak about steps in competitiveness that can make it stronger. The Minister Sitharaman has just launched the budget, and it's a starting point for Amrit Kral. So that's a very interesting proposition and outlook. And we'll talk very much about climate in both of the meetings, about agriculture, about, and above all, about private sector enabling this process of really making India one of the leaders of the world in private sector growth. I think that's a worthy goal and one that they are already pushing forward on strongly.
We'll take a quick break and return to our conversation with the president of the World Bank, David Malpass, when we return.